Hello everyone and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets and drama. Today we're going to be looking at the dramatic life and career of one of Drag Race's most infamous queens, Mimi Imfurst. We'll be talking about Mimi's dramatic appearances on Drag Race, the many feuds that she had with several other queens, as well as some more serious allegations of abuse made against Mimi. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. The origins of Mimi Imfurst. Mimi was born in Hanson, Massachusetts, and seemed to have a pretty tough time as a child, and at one point she was kicked out of her home. Mimi once said in an interview that she was outed at the age of 16, and other students at her school and even a member of staff at the school had assaulted her. Mimi then got kicked out of her home by her family, presumably because they found out she was gay, and she ended up being homeless. But eventually Mimi managed to get back on her feet thanks to support organisations such as the Gay, Lesbian and Straight Education Network. Mimi was then apparently adopted by a lesbian couple and she started to do drag at the age of 16. Her first drag name was actually Delilah de Mistra, but when she moved to New York, another queen already had the name Delilah, so Mimi changed her name to be Mimi Imfurst because she wanted a funny name because her name is a pun of Mimi I'm First. Mimi made a name for herself in the New York drag scene, and she became somewhat infamous due to her controversial annual Christmas show where she would portray Jesus' mother, Mary. And she even appeared in a 2008 movie called Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, where Mimi appeared doing this character. But this role caused a lot of controversy, and in 2005, the Catholic Advocacy Coalition named Mimi one of the top 10 anti-Catholic people. And one of Mimi's shows in Times Square was even protested by 600 people. Later in 2010, Mimi was involved in a web series called Queens of Drag NYC, which featured many other famous New York-based drag queens, such as Bianca Del Rio, Lady Bunny, and Peppermint. Mimi was also one of the founding members of the drag girl group XL in 2010. And Mimi even made a guest appearance in a 2010 gay adult movie, which was a parody of the Harry Potter movies, where Mimi played a character called Fag Hagrid. However, it was when Mimi appeared on season 3 of Drag Race in 2011 that her career reached new levels. But her time on Drag Race also brought a lot of controversy. Let's talk more about that now. Mimi's dramatic run on Drag Race. Mimi had auditioned for every season of Drag Race until she was eventually cast on season 3, which was aired in January of 2011. On the show, Mimi represented herself as a campy comedic queen, and she placed high for the first 2 episodes of the show. And in fact, Mimi nearly won the episode 3 Queens in Space acting challenge, but the win ultimately went to Shangela and Alexis Mateo. And this episode is when the infamous fight between Mimi and Shangela happened in Untucked, and the iconic sugar daddy rant.
You'll never be glamour.
Boo, just because you got a sugar daddy who pays for everything for you?
Oh. I don't have a sugar daddy. I've never had a sugar daddy. If I wanted a sugar daddy, yes, I probably could go out and get one. Baby, everything I've had, I've worked for, and I've gotten myself. I built myself from the ground up. No.
In subsequent interviews, several queens, including Alexis Mateo and Stacey Lane Matthews, have confirmed that the fight between Shangela and Mimi was a lot more physical than it appeared on camera, and a lot of the fight got cut out. It was even alleged that Shangela scratched Mimi's face so badly that Mimi was bleeding, and that's why Mimi later changed her wig when she came back to the main stage to cover up the bleeding. It later transpired that the reason this fight between Mimi and Shangela even happened was because of fellow season 3 contestant Venus Delight, who had been eliminated in episode 1. Venus had heard from a friend that Shangela had a sugar daddy, and Venus told the rest of the cast about it. In a social media post, Venus alleged that production was favouring Shangela, and a lot of the queens were calling it out during filming, using the code phrase, quote, "the jig is up." Venus also mentioned the break in production that happened during season 3, and Venus said she thinks it was because Shangela was, quote, "an asset or silent partner in season 3. For those of you who don't know, it's been confirmed by several contestants that there was a 3-week-long break in filming during season 3, which happened sometime after the 3rd episode. There was never an official reason given, but some people have alleged that it was because of the fight between Shangela and Mimi, because production had never seen anything like it before and didn't know how to deal with it. However, rumours also circulated that RuPaul had suffered a heart attack. But then RuPaul seemed to imply as though that was not true, but RuPaul said that she did have heartburn issues, and that's potentially why production was shut down. But anyway, the season resumed filming a few weeks later, and Mimi was sent home in episode 4 after her poor performance in the fitness challenge, and she fell in the bottom along with India Ferrer. This is what led to one of the most memorable lip sync moments on the show, when Mimi picked India up during the lip sync and India screamed for Mimi to put her down.
I was honestly scared and all I could do was scream.
Get her off of me!
At the end of the lip sync, RuPaul said the famous line of, quote, "Drag is not a contact sport," and Mimi was sent home. India later revealed in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that this incident traumatized her for years because people always asked her about Mimi, and India felt like all of her work was getting overlooked because of it. Fans were then shocked to see that Mimi was later cast on All Stars 1 in 2012 after she came 3rd in the fan voting. Mimi was partnered with Pandora Box, and the two of them were eliminated in the first episode, which was the Opposites Attract Makeover Challenge. However, the most infamous moment of All Stars 1 involved Mimi when everyone confronted her in Untucked. There had been some previous beef between Mimi and Alexis Mateo because Mimi had apparently taken a job at a club after Alexis got let go from the club, and Alexis felt betrayed by Mimi. This then led to the famous line delivered by Raven when she said that she was surprised that Mimi had come 3rd in the fan vote to be on the season.
Well, guess what, Mimi? We did. You, Mimi Imfurst. Mimi Imfurst was number 3rd in the voting. I could not believe it. Out of all 50 bitches, of the shit that I've seen, you don't have that many. So out of 50...
Mimi then stormed out, and she and her partner Pandora were eliminated later in the episode. And although Mimi's appearances on Drag Race were both relatively short, she gained a lot of fame and notoriety because of the dramas that she'd been involved in on the show. But the real dramas for Mimi actually happened after the show, so let's talk more about that now. Feuds with other queens. Mimi had become somewhat of a controversial figure after her time on Drag Race, but many people still really loved her, and Mimi was actually involved in organising several Drag Race tours and events. And many queens have said that they really respect Mimi's work ethic because she is very committed and hard-working. However, it seems that Mimi has had feuds with several other queens over the years, and this has led to her reputation being somewhat tarnished. Back in 2013, Mimi had a Twitter beef with season 5 contestant Jade Jolie, who accused Mimi of insulting her during a show. Mimi said that when she has a microphone, she enjoys reading people, and it's never personal, and told Jade to get over it. Mimi also referenced Jade's previous career in adult movies, and Mimi told Jade to, quote, "do what you do best and suck a D for a $50 camera from Best Buy." The two of them then traded more insults, and Jade said that Mimi wasn't funny and even called her a poor version of Delta Work. And Mimi shared a screenshot showing that she had more followers than Jade at the time. Which is somewhat ironic because nowadays Jade has almost double the number of followers that Mimi has on social media. But Judge Michelle Visage eventually stepped into the argument and said, "Stop it, girls," which has now become a bit of a joke online. Another queen that Mimi has had problems with is season 4 contestant Willem. Willem has talked several times about her bad experiences with Mimi and how she never wants to work with Mimi again. During one episode of Race Chaser, where Willem and Alaska were reviewing season 3 of Drag Race, Willem said that she had worked with Mimi before and she had hired Mimi to write some jokes for her. But Willem said that it was a horrible experience and she would never do it again, and many other queens have apparently also had bad experiences with Mimi.
Being too much, like this is why people don't like her, you know, because when the pressure is on the worst comes out in some people. Well, I just worked with her for a month and it was horrible.
Okay.
So I'm not taking this back, and I don't feel the need to bleep it. And we all experienced the same thing on this tour where we don't want to work with her again.
And in another episode of Race Chaser, Willem revealed that during the haters roast, Mimi didn't like some of the jokes that people were making about her, and Mimi ended up crying and threatening to leave the tour. Willem said she confronted Mimi, and the two of them had a heated argument, which led to Willem telling Mimi that she didn't like her.
She was going to leave the tour.
She said she was going to leave the tour if certain people didn't stop making certain jokes. But she cried. Come on, there's no crying in drag. And I'm like, if you have a problem with me, you need to talk to me. And then she's like, well, I think you're condescending. And I said, well, that's not condescending. You're probably just actually sensing that I don't like you.
And there have also been some other allegations against Mimi for bad behaviour. Let's look at that now. Bad behaviour. Because of the various feuds that Mimi has had with other queens over the years, Mimi developed a bit of a bad reputation among many queens. But for the most part, her career still seemed to be going well. But there were several incidents that happened where Mimi was called out for bad behaviour by other queens. One of them involved Trixie Mattel during an event in the UK. Back in 2017, there was an event called Drag Tech in Manchester, England, which was sort of like an early iteration of DragCon, where queens had booths and fans could come for a meet and greet. There were several well-known Drag Race queens at the event, including Mimi and also Trixie Mattel. Photos later emerged from the event, and according to a fan online who was at the event, Mimi was reportedly annoyed that Trixie had a big line at her booth, whereas Mimi didn't have a line at her booth. So Mimi seemingly picked up her booth table and her merchandise and moved it over to Trixie's line and was trying to sell her merchandise to people waiting in Trixie's line. Trixie was apparently annoyed about this and told Mimi to move. So Mimi then moved her table to the middle of the convention centre and was trying to sell her merchandise to anyone who walked past. And it's hard to know whether this was meant seriously or whether Mimi was just joking but the joke didn't land. But either way, the incident seemingly left a bad taste in some people's mouths. Mimi also once caught some criticism from legendary drag queen Jackie Beat, who accused Mimi of stealing jokes. Mimi had long established herself as a successful comedy queen, and although she had a slightly negative reputation, people still respected her comedic abilities. And one famous example was at the roast of Michelle Visage, which took place on a cruise event in 2014 organised by Elle and Chuck.Travel. And Mimi was by far the best roaster of the night, and this changed many people's perception of Mimi as a comedian.
Bianca Del Rio's so fucking old that her Rolodex of hate used to be a stone tablet. She's so fucking old that the key on Benjamin Franklin's kite unlocked her apartment. I want to thank Bianca Del Rio for making this cruise happen. Her entire family is cleaning your f***ing cabins.
However, over the years, people have accused Mimi of stealing other people's jokes. And this included Jackie Beat, who is a famous drag queen known for her comedy. In March 2019, Jackie tweeted saying, "Stealing another queen's jokes is bad enough, but stealing one of her most iconic and infamous jokes is just pathetic. But what should I expect from someone who used to come to my shows and literally take notes? Hashtag you're last." And although Jackie didn't mention Mimi's name, it's assumed Jackie was referring to Mimi because of the hashtag you're last, which is a play on words of Mimi Imfurst. And season 6 winner Bianca Del Rio replied to Jackie's tweet with the eyes emoji, and Jackie said that it was her Betty White joke that she was referring to, and Mimi had seemingly stolen this joke. Mimi also caught some criticism from fans back in 2018 when she made a critical comment about Jinx Monsoon's new album. Jinx had released her second album called The Ginger Snapped in January of 2018, and the music was inspired by the 90s/2000s. But Mimi posted on Facebook criticising Jinx's album and said, "No offence, but that's exactly the album I released a year ago. There's nothing whole or new about this. Do I even exist?" And many fans called out Mimi and said that she was just bitter because Jinx's album was more successful than Mimi's. And although these feuds and dramas with other drag queens had affected Mimi's reputation, the biggest controversy of Mimi Imfurst was yet to come, and this seemed to damage Mimi's career for good. Let's talk about that now. Allegations of abuse. There had been rumours circulating for years that Mimi had a habit of making unwanted sexual advances towards other gay men. And people had even made jokes about this during the Haters Roast, which is the reason why Mimi threatened to quit the tour, which I mentioned earlier. And these rumours had been going on for quite some time, but Mimi had seemingly never addressed the situation. But Mimi later admitted that the allegations were true after several people came forward and spoke out against Mimi. The allegations had first surfaced back in October 2017 when a Philadelphia-based burlesque performer named Turnpike had posted a friends-only post on Facebook where they asked other people to talk about the, quote, Harvey Weinstein of your town or neighbourhood. This was a reference to disgraced film producer Harvey Weinstein, who was convicted of multiple counts of sexual assault and was later sentenced to 16 years in prison. In the post, Turnpike asked people to share their stories about any, quote, predators that operate in the gay neighbourhood. Two other performers named Kyle and Ethan then apparently responded to Turnpike's post, and they subsequently spoke to Philadelphia Magazine. In a lengthy article in Philadelphia Magazine, Kyle and Ethan accused Mimi Imfurst of making, quote, unwanted and repeated sexual advances towards them over instant messaging. Kyle and Ethan said that they had been reluctant to come forward before now because they were worried about being, quote, blacklisted from the community. But they decided to come forward to try and help stop this from happening to other people and also to, quote, dispel stereotypes of sexual harassment in the LGBTQ community. Kyle and Ethan had both competed in Drag Wars, which is a local drag competition show similar to Drag Race, and Mimi was one of the creators and head judges of the show. Kyle, whose drag persona is Lorna Doom, said that, quote, at first it seemed like he, referring to Mimi, was just harmlessly flirting with me, and then he hinted at having secrets that people would judge him for. Kyle said that Mimi had started messaging him back in September of 2015, and Mimi had said she wanted to explore some, quote, kink stuff, and Kyle was the only person Mimi was opening up to about it. Kyle said he humoured Mimi at first because she was such a famous drag queen and he felt obliged to, but later Kyle said he felt uncomfortable with what Mimi was saying to him. Kyle alleged that Mimi then repeatedly used her position of power as a judge on the competition show that Kyle was competing on, and Kyle said that Mimi kept propositioning him after he was eliminated. And Kyle felt like he was, quote, in a trap because he wanted the exposure of being on the drag competition show, but he knew that if he revealed what Mimi had been saying to him, it may affect his career. Another Drag Wars performer named Ethan, whose drag persona is Lilith Del Rey, also said that Mimi had done the same thing to him and repeatedly messaged Ethan online even though Ethan felt uncomfortable with it. And eventually Mimi sexually propositioned Ethan, and the two of them did engage in some cyber-sexual conversations, but Ethan said he did it because he thought Mimi would eventually leave him alone. Ethan then apparently had a brief relationship with someone else who worked at Drag Wars, and Ethan told this person what Mimi had been saying to him online, and Mimi found out about it and was really angry. Ethan alleged that Mimi then, quote, retaliated against him, and Ethan was later eliminated from the competition in a, quote, mean-spirited way. This apparently crushed Ethan's confidence, and Ethan also implied as though Mimi tried to sabotage his drag career and get his bookings cancelled. And after Turnpike's original Facebook post received a lot of attention, Mimi must have heard that Kyle and Ethan had spoken out against her. Mimi apparently sent an apology message to Ethan saying, "You made it clear to me that you didn't want to talk about such things and I've backed off. I'm not perfect and I'm sorry if I made you uncomfortable." And although Ethan didn't reply, Mimi sent him several more messages which Ethan also did not reply to. After these allegations against Mimi eventually came out, Philadelphia Magazine reached out to Mimi for comment. Mimi admitted to the allegations and apologised in a lengthy statement that said, It has come to my attention that my sexual conversations via online messaging were uncomfortable for multiple people that I was engaging with. With 2 of those people, I have had ongoing late-night sexual conversations that involved in-depth and often exaggerated cyber roleplay that, although was welcomed by some, has made others feel uncomfortable and used. For that, I am incredibly sorry. I thought our conversation, which included sexual and non-sexual discussions, was consensual. I realise now that my intent to engage in a playful and welcomed conversation that I initiated did not have the impact on them that I thought it did. And this situation seemingly permanently damaged Mimi's career, and she doesn't seem to have recovered from it since. What is Mimi doing now? After the scandal involving the unwanted sexual advances, Mimi's career has taken a big hit, and she doesn't seem to be doing much drag-related work anymore. After the situation happened, Mimi posted several alarming posts on her social media where she said that her mental health had been affected, and she implied as though she may take her own life. But it appears that many people then reached out to Mimi to ask if she was okay, and Mimi posted saying, "Thank you to everyone who has reached out. I am sorry I haven't yet responded to everyone. I have people around me right now, please give me a minute." Mimi has made several other posts since then, which said that Mimi is still struggling, and Mimi reportedly sold some of her drag clothing to make money. Mimi hasn't really been active on her social media recently, and her last post on Instagram was in March of 2023, and her Twitter hasn't been active since May 2022. So it's not exactly clear whether Mimi has quit drag or what she is doing to support herself. I also couldn't find any news articles or social media posts to confirm what she has been up to recently. So it seems that perhaps all of the controversies Mimi has been involved in have permanently affected her career, and only time will tell if Mimi will stage a comeback at some point. And this is a good time to remind people that it's never okay to send hate to someone online, so please enjoy this video passively and don't send hate to anyone involved, and be mindful of what you post online, and that includes in the comments on this video. So there you go, there was a video about the dramatic life and career of Mimi Imfurst. Let me know in the comments if you knew anything about this situation before, but please remember to keep it respectful and not hateful. I'd also like to say a massive thank you to all of my amazing Patreon members. In the You're a Winner Baby tier, we have Emerald1508 and PC Smush. And then in the Shantae You Stay tier, we have Becky, Charlie, David, Emma, Kylie, Max, Tebby and Craig. Thank you all so much for your incredible ongoing support. It really does make such a massive difference to my channel, and it allows me to keep making videos for you all, so thank you all so much. If you'd like to join my Patreon and get exclusive benefits such as early access to my videos, shoutouts in my videos, as well as priority access when submitting interview questions among other benefits, you can join my Patreon for just a few dollars a month to unlock these amazing benefits, and I'll put a link in the description. Please make sure you like, comment and share this video as it really helps support my channel. And of course, please make sure you hit the subscribe button to stay up to date about new uploads. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again in future videos. Thank you, bye!